Greetings, Bill here. It's January the 2nd in the year 2022. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday and are anticipating experiencing a very happy new year this year. This is episode 2 in the little series I'm doing on the 21st century use of convex tones. And in this one, I'm going to kind of focus on the gear, okay? My last episode, which was the first one, I tried to talk a little bit about the history and where it came from, and with some intent of where I was going to go with it. And I think I closed out with a couple of photos of the initial convexing of the stones that I had shown in there. I thought a little bit more about the topic of hollow bevel as created by convex tones, and in thinking my way through this, I thought back to and I'm trying to explain why this kind of makes sense to me. I thought back to sharpening knives. And generally for sharpening knives, my favorite tool is the Edge Pro Apex. It's a good tool. There are tools that are in many ways, it's a rod guide system. I think I showed it in the very, very first video I did on the use of convex hones. And I've since and I think I showed it there where I used the Ken Onion belt sharpening system for a couple of knives because it was easier, it was quicker. And one thing I've noticed since that particular time is that the belt, which produces a convex edge, a rounded edge, the edges don't last as long. And one of the reasons, actually, the tool was bought for me as a Christmas present a year ago. But I use, this is the main knife that is used in my kitchen. I got rid of all the other steak knives and everything like that. And in the kitchen drawer, there's like handfuls of these. They're, $5 Victorinox paring knives, and they work very, very good. The problem that I had was to have to sharpen all of these with an Edge Pro rod guide system took just really, really a long time. And having the Ken Onion, and that one has this is the main belt thing on the Work Sharp Ken Onion, and they actually have an angle guide, and you just kind of draw it across. It's like really, really quick, but you do convex the edge, and the edge does not last as long. And I recall back to watching a video of the creator of the Edge Pro, gentleman. I imagine he's retired. It looks like his son is running the business now. But his name was is Ben Dale. A very, very knowledgeable guy. Developed that system, and there have been numerous. I don't believe he developed the rod guide system, but he took it to a new level, and there have been people who have built on his format and done their own systems, and a lot of them use that same size 1x4 stone in that. But one of his videos where he was talking about sharpness, okay, he was talking about the edge and the thickness of the blade, and he had put an edge. This would be the profile of a machete, okay, which he would put, and I forget what the angle was, but the angle that you sharpen a machete is pretty obtuse. and he said this thing will shave arm hair. Okay, no, he did not do that, but it was an edge that he did on the on the apex sharpener. And he says, you have to suit the tool to the task. Okay, and he was explaining that cutting is an act of force. And he went ahead and he took this machete and he went to slice some carrots. And one carrot, because this is so thick and pushing through that, he actually had to put it on there, put the machete on there and hit it with his hand a little bit to make it cut. Okay, and then what he did was he took a little like a spatula type putty knife or something like that, and it was a very thin like this particular knife is. And what he did was he took that, and that had no edge on it whatsoever, was totally flat. He had it sitting there on his workbench, and he actually, because of the thinness of it, he actually was slicing carrots very easily with very little force applied compared to the machete. Okay, and another thing he showed on these, and I don't do that, I sharpen these to I think a 15 or 17, whatever the original bevel angle was, at degrees, and that's per side, the way they measure it in knives. Now, somebody had asked him about steak knives. I want real good steak knives. And he took one of these and he actually sharpened it, the bevel. And then what he did was he took it and he drug the edge across a round ceramic knife hone. And what he did was he created a flat edge right on there. And he says that right there, that'll cut steak as good as you can ever get forever. Okay. And the idea, I think his idea was that since he had kind of blunted the edge and it was very, very thin, okay, a thin and a blunted edge would not be subject to damage when somebody's sitting there and they're sawing through their steak or hitting on their plate. So, and in going through some of that was in the area when I was reading about compound bevels and that, and this is the only knife, because this is a thick knife. I mean, you can look at the spine on that compared to the thickness of this knife. And this is the only knife that I compound bevel anymore. And when I say compound bevel, and I've used that term for razors, okay, it's like where I have the initial bevel that I put in there, the initial bevel, and then I put a little teeny tiny little bit of a more obtuse angle right on the edge. And that was where I was doing that, where I would do this bevel first, and then I would do this bevel later. And they, I had read, no, that's not the way you're supposed to do that. You're supposed to do this one first and then back bevel away from that edge. So, and for a knife, I didn't really think it was all that different. Okay, but as it relates to having a hollow bevel with a razor, here's a little bit of an illustration that I drew. Okay, so let's say you are using a triangular edge in sharpening, and this is what you're going to get. Okay, you're going to sharpen, you're going to get a very sharp edge. This angle, I don't know, 15, 19 degrees, whatever the angle that the spine and the edge from the razor maker gives you. Okay, so you're gonna have that, and let's say this is the bevel that I'm creating by using the convex stones. Okay, and here's where it related to me a lot like a lot like this right here was that there's a much larger distance that you go before you get you know, you have a much, when you're thinning this out, you may not get quite that point. You may not. You may, but you may not get quite that point. But what you're going to get is you're going to get something thin that very much like this, because it's thin, it cuts much easier with less force, okay? And you're going to have, even as time goes by, you're going to have to go a little bit further in terms of where you stropping, pasted stropping, whatever, whereas just the least little bit of a move away from the edge, okay? And then you have a greater distance going across than you would here, whereas in that very end part, there's going to be some amount of tolerance, and I'm not so sure that, you know, initially, you know, I thought, well, these won't last as long because it's more delicate, but in thinking my way through it and in my experience, I'm not sure about that. I'm really not sure that this couldn't be a longer lasting edge. So that's that. And to talk about my gear, okay, my subject tools are going to be, I found $2 and they're like the other one, they're really rough because they got wet or something like that. It's like rust on that. I'll probably polish this up, and when I put like a automotive type polish on there to try and clean the rust up and that kind of stuff, it might also just take this is a silk screen image on there, it's ink. I think alcohol will even take that off. But one of these, typically people go through these, and typically what they do is they'll do some grinding in here with a lot of people use a Dremel. You'll take a diamond plate or something, and you're going to work away here so that as you're honing, that additional amount of bulk in there does not affect your getting to the edge. And I think that's a little bit more important when you're using a convex hone, and especially where you're doing the really curvy radius like this, okay, that you have to get that out of there. So I'm not gonna do a video of that. I'm gonna use my canned onion to kind of grind away. This one is a little bit better. That one could probably get away without a whole lot of work. Certainly for a stone that was flat, this one would be okay. I'm gonna take a little bit more out of there. Some people totally grind the stabilizers completely out of there. This one here definitely has a little bit too much out in this area right here. It's almost like where it would be a wedge grind, which if you have a razor on a wedge grind, a convex hone is not going to work. You have to have some hollowness to the grind so that the curvature of the stone can get up and get in there. So I'll do that off camera, then I'll come back, and I'm kind of at 14 minutes now, so I'm kind of thinking that maybe it'll be another video where I actually go in and work with the stones. Okay, so that might be the third video in the series. So also today, what I'm going to do, I hollowed out all of these. Hollowed them out. I had all the stones shaped, and I did do a picture. I shaped them all on 80 grit. It's a wet dry paper with silicon carbide paper. It actually, for these particular stones, these are the Sharpening Supplies own brand of Waterstone. I tried them both wet and dry. I found it a little bit easier to do it dry. Wet seemed to, at some point in time, it just seemed like it just did not cut as well. So all of these, I'm going to have to go through a progression on the sandpaper. The first one's going to be 120. I'll do these dry, and then I think there's 220 and there's 400. Probably the 400 I'll do wet. So after the 220, I'll go ahead and I'm going to soak these stones a little bit, and then that way I'll get them about as smooth. And I think I may have a finer grit sandpaper over there. Whether I'll need it or not, I don't know. Okay, because also what I could do is I have a small Arkansas rubbing stone, and I can rub that on there to kind of burnish that, smooth that. These are going to wear. It'd be a little bit different if I was, it is a little bit different than when I did my Arkansas stones. So that's what I'm going to be doing, and I'll come back at the end when I have completed the grinding of the gold dollars with the Kennedy. I also have the other. I'm not sure if I'm going to need this particular larger grinder or not, because sometimes this small little angle here is the one that I want to use to get in there and grind that away. I don't like doing this, but I would like it less with a Dremel. I'm going to wear cut resistant gloves, and I'm also going to be wearing safety eyewear. So this is something, lots of people do this. Some of the different gold dollars are available that don't have the stabilizer in there. You can get hurt doing that. So if you do choose to do that, do be careful. So we'll be back, and thanks. Okay, in my haste, I did forget to, there was one thing I forgot to mention. I've done a couple of these. This was a most recent one I did. And ultimately, I'll do some balsa strops to go along with, if I can follow through with be successful what I'm doing and follow through with my plan to maybe make like a kit available for friends and stuff who may want to try this thing. I had convexed this on the long axis, or the short axis here, okay, of this particular plate, and gone through the progression of sandpaper's dry, okay, and I got the shape that I want. And this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a double stick adhesive on here, and I'm going to take a piece of rue and put it on there, and this is going to be the the leather type stropping device. Jury's a little bit out for me now on that particular piece of rue. It seems a little fast compared to a bench rue that I have, but I'll work with some more. And the nice thing about this is if I don't like it, I can peel it off, or I could put some sort of an abrasive on that piece of rue. If you do this, if you shape balsa, I think it's important that you de-tack this. If you have a tack cloth to pick up any of the sanding dust, you'll want to do that. Or you could use, I don't know if it's a poor man's method, but if you don't have any tack cloth, you can use like a carton sealing tape and lay it on here and peel it off, and put a fresh piece on and peel it off, and get any last little pieces of loose surface out here until you start getting tape that's clean and there's still some tack to it. Also do that for a piece of balsa that you shape, and you really should do that even if you're subscribing to the balsa method for flattening those things should be cleaned in that method before you go ahead and put your abrasive on there. So be back soon. Okay, we're back again. We went ahead and me. I went ahead and took all the stones, like I said, keeping the sandpaper dry until I got to the 400 grit, and then I went ahead and wet the paper that I was using, the 400 grit, for that. I went ahead and I used my belt sander and ground down some of the shoulder. A lot of people will take this thing all the way up and make it like a shoulderless razor. You know, I'm thinking that's okay. I got a little hook on there that I gotta take out on the stones, but I'm thinking I ground that down. This is not professional grinding. This is, you know, I'm grinding this to get a function here. So that's done. Interesting thing, I did take some metal polish to the gold dollars to see if I could get some of the rust out of it, and they're looking a little bit better, not quite so skanky looking. Okay. Interesting thing I found was that the silkscreen print on there is very resistant to the abrasion of the abrasive. It was like it was not moving at all. But I went back, I got my bottle of isopropyl alcohol, takes that right off. So if you ever use alcohol, and that's 91%. If you ever use alcohol as a sanitizing agent, or if you ever use it, sometimes like what I do is a moisture dispersant. If you have one of those, you'll take the ink right off of it. Also, I finished making my strop. This is Rue. This is the second one of these made. I made another one and I sent it on a field trip. So I made this one, and for me, the jury is still out on this. I got to use this a little bit more. I'm feeling this is a little fast compared to. So what I might do is put a little bit of a strop compound on there. I think I got some Froms back there, and all he needs like a couple of drops. It's probably like neat's foot oil. Put that on there and rub that in. That should put a little bit better draw on that. This is really kind of slippery, but this might be good. I'm going to try it this way first as it is. And then another thing I did while I had my little knife sharpener, belt sander out was I had this razor that I never really was happy with the pinning on that. Okay. And it was particularly, you know, this is not the only one that have that. Sometimes the wood scales, I think, can swell a little bit and then contract and maybe wear, and they can be like prone to having floppy scales. This was one of those, and there just was there's an art to pinning and how much pin you leave and how flush you cut it or file it down or whatever before you start tapping, and what kind of hammer you use. You know, you're supposed to use, I think, like a half round or something like that, and a certain weight and whatever. It was never something that I really had any luck with. But what I did do is I did find, like, let's see if we can get a focus on it. I did find this brass hardware that's actually a little bolt, okay, and some washers, okay, and there's a little nut that goes on there, and I put a couple of washers on the inside, and it does seem to hold that. I did buy a little wrench to go in there. Now I had to go buy 100 of these things, So if you're on the cadre and you pick this up and you're interested in having some of this hardware, it's a little longer than this. You have to like clip it and then file it once it's put, file it down so it's not, that's still a little sharp. I'll probably put a little file on there and take that down. But if you're on the cadre, send me a PM with an address if you want a set of these. I'll be glad to send them to you if you want to try them. It needs a really, really tiny little nut driver. Okay. You could probably get it with some sort of a wrench. I don't know. It's just really, really tiny. But that was another little project I had going. And the stones are all, and I'm not gonna hone today. I am gonna take a couple of swipes on this first one here. I'll take a couple of swipes on that with one of these razors to kind of show. The interesting thing is on this particular stone holder with the one where you're going to back bevel. Okay, this does not hold terribly tight. And at some point in time, what I may have to do is I may have to take it apart and take this little middle thing out. Certainly, if you put this little middle support in the middle, it's not going to hold. But I had these soaking, and there's just not enough time today. I didn't think there was going to be, but not enough time for me to do any honing of any particular meaning. But I am gonna make the first swipe here as a kind of a, okay, and this is a 1000 grit of the new, and you can see the strokes that I'm making where it's kind of an X stroke, okay, because there is a curvature this way, and what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to do what I would normally do in honing and see how this is. But that stone sounds pretty good, okay, and you can kind of see that even though this razor probably would not pass that popular tap and wobble test for geometry. I haven't really even looked at this for the geometry because with this stone it does not matter, and this does feel a little gritty. So I may burnish this down with an Arkansas rubbing stone or something like that. But that's where we're going to be, and so no special strokes, just other than just moving across. It'll be interesting to see how this goes. I've said that this was for me not very difficult to learn compared to what I had read on some of the other stuff where you watch or whatever, and just the weight of the razor, and okay, just the weight of the razor, and then a half of the weight of the razor, and then a quarter of the weight of the razor. And it's like, unless you got to, I don't know how to do that, and then the amount of torque you're putting in on it. So if you're honing with one hand, and I've never really totally got that, but how much torque do you put into the blade? For me, it was easier. I'm keeping a light touch, holding it down, and the light touch on both is giving me contact up on the edge. And we'll just see how it is. That's not quite ready yet, but that'll be next episode where I get into honing. So you can find me, Bill M, at theshavingcadre.com. It is the greatest shaving forum to belong to, and they don't throw you out for doing this stuff. So take care.